Okay, so it says on our problem the distance between x and mess of ice cream is another mess of ice cream. So basically, the distance between x and blank is blank. So that girl basically messed up and she somehow deleted that part of her question, but she had already answered the problem and her answers were -3, x is -3, and x is 7. So anytime you have something that says the distance between x and something is something, it's talking about absolute value. And if you remember, absolute value is the distance away from something. So, like, if you just look at this, like x minus 2, but it's the absolute value equals 5, okay? So, the way we got this is because we know the answers are -3 and 7. So we drew a number line and we put a dot at 7 and a dot at -3 because that's where our answers were. And we want to know what the distance between x and something is. Well, in this case, let's start with x and -3. Well, that's down here. And x as 7 is up here. Well, anytime we're going to find the absolute value, like which is the distance between x and something, and there's two different answers, because if the absolute value was like this, it could be this equals 5, right? Because the absolute value of a -5 is just 5, correct? And then the or it could be the absolute value with a +5 on the inside. So it could be a -5 on the inside or a positive, and that also equals 5, because the absolute value is just the distance away from 0. Okay, so the distance that -5 is away from 0 is 5. The distance 5 away is from 0 is also 5. So on the inside, it can either be negative or positive. But the way they worded this is the distance between x and something is, x and something is something, right? And you know the answers are -3 or -7, okay? So the way we did it is we found out what is the middle point between those. How many times, I always refer to Bridget and tell her how many times we jumped. So when I say, okay, I'm going to start here and I'm going to jump 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So we know there's 10 spaces between the two. So directly in the middle, it's 5 spaces. So we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So our number we're trying to figure out, our distance is 2. Okay, so when we look at it, we're going to have the distance between x and 2 is 5. Okay, so when x is -3, we jump 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the distance between x is a -3, if x was -3, we would have -3 minus 2. That would equal that -5 right there, which equals 5. So that makes that statement true for -3. But it also makes it true for this 7 over here, because 7 minus 2, when you take the absolute value of that, equals 5, because that's this situation down here. Okay, so anytime you have the wording, the distance between x and a number is something, you always write it as the distance between x and a number. So in this case, it was the distance between x and 2 is 5. And the two numbers that make this statement true would be x equals 7 or x equals -3, because x equals 7 makes it 7 minus 2, which equals the absolute value of the +5, which equals 5. Okay, so that matches that. Okay, and then when you have x is negative 3, you have a negative 3 minus 2, because we're just taking this down here, okay, equals the absolute value of negative 3 minus 2 is negative 5. The absolute value of a negative 5 is also 5. So we know we did it right, but I always draw a number line on that kind of stuff. So you can also liken it to, if you look over at 236, where it says, sorry, I'm trying to get this without covering it up. It talks about rearranging the wording and this, that, and the other, and it says to form a sentence that is equivalent to the equation absolute value of x minus 17 equals 4. By working with a number line, find the values of x that fit the equation. When it said that, what we did was we put a number line out, and we knew that the amount of jumps we needed to do were 4 jumps, and we knew that this was the number we were jumping from. So we would go up 4 and minus 4. Okay, so I hope that helps.